Have you ever imagined that a simple gesture from a dog could save an entire family from a danger no one saw? It sounds like a scene from a movie, but what you'll discover today is a true story, marked by emotion, mystery, and an instinct that goes beyond what science can explain. Amidst an ordinary routine, inside a seemingly peaceful home, there was an invisible, silent enemy ready to cause irreparable damage. But a four-legged hero was attentive, sniffing every detail, noticing something that completely escaped human eyes. And this is where the real surprise begins. When everyone thought it was just another ordinary day, the dog became the guardian no one expected. Dogs have senses that we humans can't fully comprehend. Their sense of smell is thousands of times more sensitive than ours, capable of detecting scents we can't even imagine. But in this story, it wasn't just the sense of smell that impressed. It was the dog's insistent, almost desperate behavior that refused to ignore what was right in front of him. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever felt like your pet noticed something strange before you even understood what was happening? It's this mysterious bond between humans and dogs that we'll delve into now. Imagine the scene. A family gathered together, going about their daily routine, unaware that danger was so close. While conversations continued and the day's chores continued as usual, the puppy paced restlessly, sniffing corners of the house, always returning to the same spot. He barked, scratched the floor, and his expression was clear. Something was wrong. What no one understood was that the warning wasn't in vain. Something hidden, silent, was about to be discovered. And here comes the most intriguing part. How can a puppy detect poison in the house, something completely imperceptible to the human eye and even to the human sense of smell? This behavior wasn't just a curious detail. It was a true barrier against tragedy. What you're about to discover may surprise you, because when we talk about moving animal stories, we always think of dogs saving people from drowning, fires, or attacks. But in this case, the danger wasn't visible. There were no screams, no smoke, no running. It was a silent poison, ready to act without anyone noticing. And that's precisely why the dog's instincts were so decisive. He not only sensed the danger, but insisted on showing his owners that something wasn't right. These kinds of situations make us reflect. To what extent can we truly understand the animals that live by our side every day? We often think we know our dogs only as loyal companions, but the truth is they possess impressive abilities that can mean the difference between life and death. Stay with me until the end, because throughout this story, you'll realize we're not just talking about science, but about something much deeper, an invisible bond of protection, affection, and intuition. While the family didn't understand the signals, the dog remained firm, determined, as if he had been trained for this mission. But was it just his sense of smell? Or was there an even greater sensitivity at work? Something beyond any logical explanation? You'll realize that this simple gesture from a seemingly ordinary animal became an unforgettable moment for everyone who witnessed that moment. And this is exactly where the most exciting part of this journey begins. Because when the family finally decides to investigate the reason for so much persistence, something unexpected comes to light. And perhaps, upon hearing this story, you've remembered a time when your dog also displayed strange behavior, as if trying to alert you to something you couldn't see. These details, which often go unnoticed, are precisely what reveal the greatness of these four-legged companions. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what touched you most, or even a similar experience you've had. Each shared story helps show that we're not alone in these stories, and that together we can create a true community of people who recognize and value the importance of animals in our lives. And please also like this video, because this simple gesture makes all the difference in bringing more people access to moving stories like this. When you like it, YouTube understands that this content deserves to be shared with more people. And this way we can spread even more messages of faith, hope, and love through the incredible examples of these hero dogs. And of course, Subscribe to the channel to continue watching content that will touch your heart and make you reflect on how animals transform our world in ways we often can't explain. Your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of message. And I really want you to be a part of that with me, because what comes next will show, even more clearly, how a simple gesture can change everything. The house was silent, immersed in those small routines that give a sense of security. The coffee still lingered in the air. The television on low filled the room with an almost comforting normalcy, and each family member seemed immersed in their own affairs. Nothing indicated anything was wrong. Nothing except the dog's behavior. While everyone else went about what could have been just another ordinary day, he already felt the weight of an invisible danger. His watchful eyes kept roaming every corner of the room, as if searching for answers in places no one else could see. Suddenly, he began persistently sniffing the living room baseboard, the hallway, and even the kitchen. It wasn't a simple gesture of curiosity. It was a precise, almost urgent sense of smell. With each passing second, it became clearer that something was bothering him. First came the short, repeated barks, almost like a warning. Then came the low howls, filled with a strange mixture of anxiety and determination. At first, his owners thought it was just another habit, a reaction to some insect, or perhaps a reflection of pent-up energy. But the dog wouldn't give up. He scratched the floor, stared at the humans, returned to the same spot, and insisted that something was there, hidden, waiting to be discovered. The atmosphere in the house began to change. Tranquility gave way to a growing unease. The dog's insistence no longer seemed like a whim, but a genuine cry for help. It was as if he wanted to say, "Pay attention, something serious is happening." And somehow that warning struck a chord with everyone. The mother, who had previously been busy washing the dishes, let the water run unattended and began to observe more closely. The father, who was lounging on the sofa, got up and followed the dog, intrigued by such an unusual reaction. Even the children, who were playing without a care in the world, noticed something different in the air. That moment was the turning point, the rupture of routine, when home ceased to be merely a place of comfort and became a stage of mystery. The dog seemed to take on the role of protagonist, directing each gaze to what truly mattered. And it's curious how, in moments like these, animal instinct reveals not only a biological ability, but something that also touches our own perception. When the human mind finds it difficult to see what isn't obvious, a dog's heart becomes the compass capable of pointing to the hidden truth. From that moment on, each bark carried symbolic weight. It wasn't just sound. It was pure communication charged with urgency. The family, previously skeptical, began to feel the impact of what was before them. After all, how often do we ignore signs that seem so small, but which deep down are the backstage of something much larger about to unfold? There, before an alert puppy, was a lesson in how simple decisions, like stopping to listen, can transform an entire journey. The most impressive thing was that every detail seemed carefully orchestrated. The dog returned to the same spot, repeating the same gesture, as if determined not to rest until everyone understood. And in this movement there was something greater. It wasn't just instinctive protection. It was as if an invisible force was using that animal as an instrument of salvation. This realization brought a heavy silence charged with questions. What could be hidden there? What invisible danger was this that only he could sense? Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this moment when everyday life is shattered by an insistent gesture brings to light reflections that go beyond mere animal behavior. It shows us how much we live surrounded by signs we ignore, by warnings that seem so small but hold transformative revelations. How many times in your life have you felt something wasn't right, but chose to carry on, believing it was just an impression? Just as this family needed to stop and listen to a dog's call, we all have moments when the hidden truth insists on revealing itself, just waiting for us to pay attention. And perhaps this is the most powerful part of this narrative, the discovery doesn't begin with what was hidden, but with the impact the warning had on each person. A discomfort that gradually transformed into decision, action, and courage to investigate what seemed impossible to notice. And it is, at this point, that the journey takes on even more moving dimensions, as it's not just about a dog protecting his family, but about a silent transformation taking place in the hearts of everyone present. The atmosphere was no longer the same. The everyday noise of the house gave way to the rhythmic sound of paws scratching the floor, the steady echo of barks that seemed to speak louder than words, and the attentive silence of a family beginning to understand that nothing there was by chance. The truth, until then hidden, was about to come to light, and this revelation would bring not only the discovery of a danger, but also a profound impact on how everyone would come to view that dog. Comment: This makes sense to me. The silence of the house was broken by careful, almost uncertain footsteps when the family finally decided to truly follow the dog's signals. He, in turn, seemed increasingly distressed, as if every lost second were a greater risk. There was no longer any way to ignore it. The father walked to the spot where the animal insisted on sniffing and scratching. The dog's watchful eyes fixed on that spot as if revealing a closely guarded secret. The mother, already gripped by a chill, approached as well, and together they began moving some objects to understand what was there. Their hearts raced because that sense of mystery transformed every gesture into an act of courage. And then, as the last box was moved, the scene unfolded before them. Something was hidden, carefully placed in an almost inaccessible corner. A vial of poison, strong and silent, was there, ready to cause disaster. It wasn't just an overlooked detail, nor a careless accident. The container was strategically positioned, in a place where, if not for the dog's keen sense of smell, it would have gone unnoticed for a long time. It was at that moment that the family realized the true impact of the animal's persistence. The danger was real, it was inside the house, and it could have changed everyone's fate. The initial shock gave way to a mixture of fear and relief. Fear for what could have happened if nothing had been discovered, and relief because, thanks to the dog, the tragedy had been avoided. The human mind is quick to calculate consequences, and everyone imagined what would have happened if that poison had come into contact with food, water, or even the children playing innocently around the house. It was like facing the hidden truth of something we prefer to believe doesn't exist. Dangers can be closer than we imagine, hidden in the shadows of life, just waiting for the moment to act. And at that point, the family's mindset shifted. The dog went from being just a routine companion to taking on the role of hero. Every bark, every insistent gesture took on new meaning. He wasn't just restless, not just curious. It was a mission. A revelation that clearly demonstrated that sometimes salvation comes through the most unexpected means. That animal, so often seen as just a dog, had just shown that his instinctive decisions were worth more than any rational explanation. Tension hung in the air, but with it a new awareness arose. How many times do we go through life ignoring signs, postponing decisions, letting the invisible continue to act unquestioned? That moment was a true transformation for everyone there. They understood that nothing is too small when it comes to protection, and that even hidden details have an impact. The truth is, if it weren't for that dog's persistence, that family's journey could have ended very differently. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this scene isn't just about poison found in a corner of the house, but about revelations that completely change the way we view roles in our own lives. It's as if the story is saying that every warning, every discomfort brings with it the opportunity to choose, ignore and take risks, or stop and investigate, even when it seems unlikely. And it is precisely in this point that the power of this experience lies. The dog became a living symbol of how attention and persistence can reveal what was hidden, bringing to light truths that change the course of an entire journey. The family, still reeling, began to ponder the behind-the-scenes story of this discovery. Who had planted the poison there? Was it an accident or an intentional trap? This doubt, coupled with the tension of what could have happened, carried an immense emotional weight. The feeling of vulnerability was intense, but at the same time, there was immeasurable gratitude. Gratitude for having someone by their side who, without speaking a single word, managed to save everyone's lives. Every glance at the dog was filled with emotion. The children hugged him tightly, as if only now realizing the depth of his presence in their lives. The father, silent, reflected on the decisions that must be made when the truth appears without warning. The mother, with tears in her eyes, silently thanked him for not ignoring the signs until the end. And through it all, the dog remained steadfast, with his gaze attentive and his body relaxed, as if knowing he had accomplished his mission. This story makes us think about how small gestures can bring great revelations. The impact lies not only in what was found, but in what was avoided, and most importantly, in the transformation that took place within that house. Suddenly, everyone was more attentive, more aware, more willing to listen to the signs around them. The poison was real, but even more real was the lesson that the invisible can be defeated when there is courage to see beyond the obvious. And this lesson doesn't end there. It continues in every attentive glance, in every decision we make in the face of the unexpected. What this family experienced became a milestone, a watershed between what was routine and what is now an unforgettable memory. A reminder that even the most silent danger can be revealed when there is persistence, instinct, and unconditional love. Right there, I'm on this journey too. It's impossible not to be impressed when we think about how that dog managed to detect such a well-hidden danger, something that all the family members completely ignored. The truth is, scientifically, we know that a dog's sense of smell is extraordinary. To give you an idea, while we humans have about 5 million olfactory cells, a dog can have over 200 million. This means they are capable of identifying scents in concentrations so minute we can't even imagine them. A single particle suspended in the air can be enough to trigger an immediate alert in their brain. It's as if they were constantly reading an invisible book of scents, deciphering every detail that goes unnoticed by us. But even with all this scientific explanation, there's something in this story that makes us think beyond logic. When we observed this dog's behavior, it didn't just seem like science. It wasn't just about recognizing the scent of hidden poison. There was a purpose in his persistence, a determination that sounded almost like a mission. It's as if he felt on some deeper level that he needed to protect the people he loved so much. This mix of biological instinct and something bordering on the inexplicable stirs our mentality. It forces us to reflect on the hidden truth of the bond between humans and animals, which is often stronger than any study can prove. This ability goes beyond smell. It's as if dogs possess a spiritual sensitivity, a sixth sense that attunes them to events that haven't even begun. How many times have we heard stories of dogs sensing natural disasters, becoming restless moments before an earthquake or a storm? How many times have we seen animals that remain by the side of their sick owners, as if they know exactly what's happening inside the human body? These behind-the-scenes glimpses of the relationship between humans and dogs reveal something powerful. Perhaps they aren't just reacting to physical stimuli, but acting as true guardians of a journey that goes far beyond reason. And this raises an inevitable question. To what extent do we trust our instincts? If a dog can perceive what we can't see, hear, or smell, what stops us from believing there's something greater behind this connection? Perhaps the answer lies precisely in how we make our daily decisions. We often disregard our own intuition, that silent voice that alerts us when something isn't right. And curiously, dogs seem to be a reflection of this same intuition, only in a purer, more intense state, free from the distractions we humans carry. The impact of this is profound. Science gives us the tools to understand part of the phenomenon, but not the whole. That dog's insistence, his steady gaze, the energy of urgency he conveyed, cannot be reduced to mere numbers or biological data. There was emotion, there was surrender, there was a kind of invisible truth that only reveals itself to those willing to see. And perhaps this is precisely the great value of instincts. They connect us with something essential, something that transcends the boundaries of logic and reminds us that life is not limited to what can be measured. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we think of instinct, we're not just talking about survival, but about a kind of silent revelation that shapes our choices, protects our paths, and transforms how we face the unexpected. That family's dog not only prevented a disaster, it demonstrated a path of trust, attention, and respect for the signals we often miss. This transformation in perspective can change everything. Imagine if we began to value more the subtle signals we receive every day, whether through an animal or through our own intuition. Perhaps many complicated situations would be avoided. Perhaps wrong decisions would never be made. This episode teaches us that wisdom lies hidden in the details. A puppy's instinct can be compared to an invisible map, guiding us away from danger. At the same time, it invites us to reflect on our own journey. Are we attentive enough to notice the signs around us? Do we trust what we feel, even when we don't have concrete explanations? These questions open the door to revelations that can transform our mindset. After all, life always leaves clues, and those who learn to interpret them are the ones who can bravely overcome the greatest challenges. The family in that story understood this in practice. The dog didn't need words, just actions. He persisted, didn't give up, and in the end, showed that there are times when love and protection speak louder than any invisible barrier. And this leads us to recognize that, in every animal that crosses our path, there may be a force of care that we don't always understand, but which directly impacts the course of our lives. Comment: this makes sense to me that day. Something changed forever in the way the family viewed their dog. He was no longer just the faithful friend who brightened their mornings or accompanied the children's playtime, but revealed himself as a silent guardian, someone who, without asking for anything in return, had saved them all from a fate that could have been devastating. The most impressive thing is that everything happened so naturally, without rehearsal, without expectations, as if it were written that at that moment he would be the hero. And this realization brought a wave of gratitude so intense it was impossible not to be moved. It's curious how, in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we get used to seeing dogs as part of our routine. The ones that wag their tails when we arrive, the ones that ask for affection, the ones that bark at the mailman. But stories like this reveal a hidden truth. These animals carry within them a silent mission, an unconditional love that transforms into acts of courage the moment danger strikes. When we least expect it, they show us that they are not just companions, but attentive guardians, always ready to protect, even if it means putting themselves at risk. And to think about this is to understand the profound impact a dog can have on our lives. That episode with the poison wasn't just a shock, it was a revelation. The family's mindset changed. They began to look at the dog not only with more affection, but also with more respect, recognizing the protective force that couldn't be explained by science alone. After all, how can we explain the insistence, the determination, the steady gaze that didn't rest until the truth was revealed? It's at this point that we realize that life is made up of behind-the-scenes details we rarely see, but which, from time to time, reveal themselves in a breathtaking way. That's why this kind of experience also touches each of us. Because deep down, we know that the value of dogs lies not only in moments of joy, but also in how they become anchors in times of crisis. Transformation happens when we realize they have no self-interest, no desire for recognition, no need for applause. Everything they do is driven by pure love, protective instinct, and a loyalty that seems boundless. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because if we look closely, this dog's gesture teaches us something about our own decisions. How often do we fail to hear what's silent, what's hidden between the lines, and continue to ignore signs that could change the course of our journey? That animal, without saying a word, reminds us that we must pay attention to the revelations that emerge in the details, because that's often where the greatest truths lie hidden. That day, it wasn't science that saved the family. It was the love and instinct of a four-legged hero. That phrase echoed in their minds every time they looked at the dog resting after completing his mission. The impact of this event went beyond the moment the poison was discovered. It brought about a transformation in the family's outlook, which began to value not only the animal's instincts, but also how those instincts reveal something greater, that life, when cared for with care, always shows signs of protection. This story is a vivid reminder that gratitude shouldn't just be felt, but practiced. The family didn't let that episode remain a distant memory. They began to see the dog as an active part of their security, as someone who, even without asking for anything, demonstrated the importance of trusting in signs that seem small but carry great revelations. And this is the kind of lesson that transcends the barrier between humans and animals, because it also makes us think about how we care for those around us. Comment, "This makes sense to me," if you've made it this far. I believe this story has touched you in some way. That's precisely its purpose, to show that dogs play a much greater role than we imagine, and that stories like this can inspire, move, and even transform the way we view the details of life. So if this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel to continue following other stories that will touch your heart and open space for new reflections. And please leave a like, because it's through your like that I know this connection truly happened between us. Oh, and tell me in the comments that you made it to the end by writing the phrase, "I'm with you until the end." I really want to know who walked with me on this journey until the last word. And it doesn't stop there. There's a video here that complements this subject. Click and continue with me there.